Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Paper Review Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Flores, and today's topic is 3 takeaways from this week's Raw and Smackdown. As you know, this is the second week of the newly revamped post-draft Raw and Smackdown. I along with several other wrestling fans, definitely see a new change coming with the ratings, with the roster separation, with everything. What lessons, the question could be asked is that what 3 takeaways did we all see from this week's Raw and Smackdown Live episodes? But I want to let you know is that this Paper Review Podcast is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You could come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share any which podcast of my Mark F. podcast channel, which includes the Paper Review Podcast, the Retro Collecting 101 podcast, and the very hilarious Mark and Andre show, you'll be able to get 10% off towards your retro game purchases at Game Swappers, or you'll be able to get 10% more towards your retro game trade-ins. All you have to do is take a screenshot, share it, and then show the employee on staff at Game Swappers, and they'll be able to help you out with the discount. But anyway, let me get into this real quick. Let me just cut some things off here. Anyway, so the 3 takeaways to take away from this week's Raw and Smackdown episodes. One thing I did notice was on SmackDown Tuesday, SmackDown Live, Dolph Ziggler cut an amazing promo to hype up his match with Dean Ambrose at SummerSlam. Dolph Ziggler's epic promo on SmackDown was one of the best promos I've heard from him, and I've heard all year. When a WWE superstar is invested to this extent of a certain gimmick, of a certain image, and of a certain storyline, to where it seems like it's really their emotions being portrayed and it's really how they feel, that's when the crowd becomes interested. And they become so interested to where they will want to see the SummerSlam event just to see how this specific match unfolds. This is cutting a promo 101. Dolph Ziggler put tons of emotions into it, basically telling Dean Ambrose, like, look, dude, you might have came up a couple years before I have, but I've done a lot more than you have, starting from where I've started from versus where you did. And it was just a really good promo because it was hyped up with so much emotion, and it made you feel like you were a part of something going on between them, like you kind of almost felt like it was a shoot promo. We are naturally intrigued to this matchup of Dolph Ziggler versus Dean Ambrose in this feud because men and women alike they love the underdog story. Rocky, Mighty Ducks, the list goes on and on. I hope that something great comes out of this situation. I don't really expect Dolph Ziggler to win at SummerSlam, but I do expect him to do a great heel turn after he realizes he wasn't able to win against Dean Ambrose. That's the only thing I'm looking at as far as now because, as I told you guys before, Dolph Ziggler's kind of heading out in about 2016, 2017, one of those years, either this year or the next year when his contract expires. So I don't know whether or not they're going to do something with him winning the WWE Championship. To me, Dean is getting exposed. This kind of goes along with one of my takeaways. This is still in the same envelope of Dolph Ziggler's promo, but with Dean Ambrose on the other side of this promo, it shows that he's getting exposed when it comes to cutting promos. When you stack someone as professionally experienced as Dolph Ziggler, you kind of see where the short end of the stick lies when you put him aside with Dean Ambrose. Hopefully there's a great outcome that will come of this. I really hope that they're going to put on a great match, tear the house down, burn Brooklyn to the ground, as Dolph Ziggler said. I definitely hope so. I got tons of hope for this match in particular. The next takeaway that I have from this week's Raw and Smackdown episode is we can see both shows' strong points and we can see both shows' separate identity. Raw and SmackDown are 2 separate shows. So separate, in fact, that they both have separate identities. Raw, besides the whole color motif and everything and the whole name, you're looking at different camera angles from Raw and SmackDown. You're looking at different ways that they come across with matches, different perspective on what they want to do when it comes to having matches like this. A week after the debut of Raw and SmackDown, we can now see where both their strengths and their weaknesses reside. SmackDown and Raw both have separate identities, even down to the camera perspectives, with each show being so unique, it'll make people want to tune in even more. WWE is playing this very well, and I'm certainly enjoying these different identities. As far as the ratings go, you're going to have a slight dip in these ratings for now. I can assume that, just because I don't know whether or not a lot of people would tune in on Thursdays if they. I don't know whether or not they would tune in more on Thursday nights than they would Tuesday nights. We got to see when that transition can change, when people kind of realize, oh wow, SmackDown is not on Thursdays, it's on Tuesdays now. We got to see, but hopefully the whole ratings with them actually improves. I think with John Cena being on SmackDown, hopefully that improves as well. The last thing I've heard, that Raw was actually in the 2.3s this week, and then SmackDown was in the 1.8s. So that's not necessarily bad, but it's not necessarily good either. So we just have to wait till this rough patch comes over, and then we'll see where the ratings truly lie. Because I think both Raw and SmackDown are both separately entertaining. I do not tune in just for Raw and that's it. I tune in both to Raw and SmackDown. A lot of my favorite superstars are on SmackDown, with like AJ Styles is on SmackDown, John Cena's on SmackDown, American Alpha's on SmackDown. But then I like going to Raw because I like seeing Cesaro on Monday Night Raw, and so on and so forth. Hopefully, this includes the takeaway that I'm speaking of, because it's making people more intrigued to watch the product when it starts on Monday and then Tuesday. I enjoy the idea that you have 2 consecutive days where you can actually watch the show. It's very cool to me. I definitely enjoy it. I would want to see, as far as improvements, we're talking about strengths here, but as far as weaknesses, we have to wait. I have to wait a little longer before I can actually put my finger on the weaknesses, because when a change comes around, I only see the good for now. I mean, I don't really like to nitpick at stuff, but nitpick at stuff when it barely starts. But hopefully we'll see where we can actually point the finger at the issue when it comes to Raw and SmackDown having those issues separately. The third takeaway for this summer, for this Raw and SmackDown, is that the match card that we have for this SummerSlam leading up to the official SmackDown card that we have now has very little outside interference, and I'm meaning like Stardust versus Christopher Arrows, Christopher Amell type of interference. As we all know, SummerSlam is the second WrestleMania. It's as important as WrestleMania, but to a lesser tier. It's the second premier show out of all of WWE's programming. It's really important. It's so important, as a matter of fact, that they need to have a very stacked match card. In order for you to do that, you need to have premier talent. And if you cannot fill that premier talent, you are stuck with involving celebrities, involving crazy gimmick matches with celebrities at ringside. But with this SummerSlam in particular, this match card for this year's SummerSlam is actually stacked with a great roster. There's practically zero celebrity influence coming around the way, or even from a part-timer that's not named Brock Lesnar. There's something to enjoy. Done are we from the terrible rosters of 2 years ago. I love this transition where we're actually going to have just dense talent, to dense people that, of course we stole people from Ring of Honor, and of course we stole people from New Japan Pro Wrestling, but WWE had to do what they had to do to make sure that they are still the top dog. This is a monopoly at its finest, but each match regarding SummerSlam will have great potential to be a 4 to 5 star match. Cena versus AJ Styles, that was a great match at the previous at Battleground. Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler, again, both talented wrestlers. Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor, I don't really need to say much there. Sasha Banks versus Charlotte, we saw what they did on Monday, last Monday. And then The Miz versus Apollo Crews. You have The Miz, who's doing a great heel job for now, and Apollo Crews, who needs to have a major impact on this pay-per-view to actually stay relevant, because I think his stock is slowly dwindling because he's not in anything exciting as of now. Hopefully something comes out of this. This match card's really stacked, and they still need a couple more matches to add. And this is honestly building up to the Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar match as well. So at its core, this SummerSlam is going to be really exciting. I cannot wait to watch it. I think this is one of the takeaways that we learned from Raw and Smackdown, because they are building up SummerSlam to be something epic, to be something to watch. And with a match card like this, you have no choice but to watch it. These guys are talented. These guys can wrestle. These guys are great on the mic, some of them. And they all demand attention. They all demand it because of their star power, because of their past reputation. Even in the sense of Brock Lesnar, added to the fact that he's a good wrestler, there's controversy among them because he's not getting popped for doing the performance enhancing drugs. There's a lot of things that factors and outside things that are involving these wrestlers that make you want to watch these matches. So it's very intriguing to the non-wrestling fan and to the current wrestling fan. I'm really excited. Cannot wait. I'm anticipating this whole thing with Zen-like patience, because if I overreact and everything, and then I just get my hopes up, it all come falling down like a well-stacked house of cards. And I don't want that. I really want this show to be successful, because if it is, this actually is going to be one of the first SummerSlams which involves almost no one from the previous 2 SummerSlams besides Brock Lesnar and John Cena. The roster transition, I think, is really cool. I mean, I'm glad we got Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and all the guys, most of the guys from NXT up. I'm glad for that. But I am really enjoying WWE's new vision, especially with this new Raw and Smackdown. I do enjoy the fact that we're able to watch wrestling on 2 consecutive nights. It's like a great weekend. But other than that, those are my 3 takeaways from this week's Raw and Smackdown. And that concludes my pay-per-review podcast for tonight. I want to let you guys know is that this pay-per-review podcast was brought to you by none other than my proud sponsor at Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You can come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share any which 3 of my podcasts on the Mark F Podcast channel, which includes Retro Collecting 101, Pay-Per-Review Wrestling Podcast, or the very hilarious Mark and Andre Show, you'll be able to get 10% off towards any game purchases that you do at Game Swappers. Simply take a screenshot of the share that you do, take it over to Game Swappers, show them, and then you'll be able to get your 10% discount. Other than that, you guys have a good night. I want to wish you guys a great rest of your weekend coming up. But other than that, you guys have a good night. Thank you.